But then when you look at the pros of franchising, the list, like we don't even have enough time to hit on everything on the list, but like things that just quickly come to mind are like lower startup risks. Because again, you're not paying for cash flow. So you're have that lower startup risk, but with it, you're getting, systems, an established brand. That smaller upfront investment makes the financing easier because now you're oftentimes off of your W-2 income if you're coming out of a W-2 role, or if you're invested in other businesses and you don't have a high income level, you'll qualify for the loan that's required to acquire that franchise as opposed to that substantially larger loan to acquire an existing business. You now get to establish also your local reputation. You get to establish the core values. You make all of the hiring decisions of people that fit your culture, that are really fit for the roles that you're looking to put them in, as opposed to maybe a prior owner in a business that you would be acquiring might have tried to put, a square peg in a round hole just to try to retain somebody that maybe wasn't the right fit for the business. And then most importantly, you get all of the training and support that the franchisor offers with that fast ramp up of onboarding, and then that large community of peers that are willing to share open and transparent information. I've been in industries where I've operated a small independently owned business doing under $10 million a year within a small geographic region. And I can tell you that even though I thought that I had others in the industry that were willing to be open and honest and share information with me, there was always this guard, and
Yeah.
where you quickly found out that you weren't always getting the most accurate or up-to-date information from those people. There was some puffery involved. People wouldn't tell you the whole truth. It was just one of those things where, your competitors would sort of want to keep you at arm's length and
Right.
make you think that they're giving you information, but they're really not. They're just, giving you very, very little. And so opening up that community of being part of a franchise network, is really the true definition of rising tides rises all boats.
Yeah, I would love to go back to a point because it just came up yesterday again. If I buy a business, I'm buying existing revenue. If I start a franchise from scratch, this woman had told me that she was making 250, between 250 and 350, depending on the year. So, Meg, how quickly can I replace my income at that level?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, it really all depends. But walk through, Josh, because I did this for her yesterday, but you're a different voice and a different point of view. It can be a benefit to start from zero. There are tax ramifications, et cetera, et cetera. How do you walk a candidate through that concern of starting with zero revenue and then building either a membership base, pre-sales? How does Horsepower help franchisees quickly attain revenue?
So a big misconception that people have when they're going into business for themselves from a W-2 role is if I'm making $250,000 at my current job, I need to make $250,000 in a business. And that's in it. You're not comparing apples to apples, because in a W-2 role, you're paying for so many expenses on a personal level out of post-tax dollars. So your silent partner of Uncle Sam got his share of your paycheck, and then you're left with the net of that. And then you're stuck paying things like a vehicle payment, auto insurance, a cell phone bill, internet, you name it, the list goes on and on. Now, when you own a business, you're paying things like insurance, cell phone bills, internet out of pre-tax dollars. So those aren't actually even hitting what you would be thinking as you need an income. So you have to start backing those things out. You also can't discount the tax benefits of starting a new business. Now, it's important to think about the structure, because if you establish your business out of the gate as a C Corp, you're not going to get the pass through onto your personal tax return like you would with an S Corp or an LLC. But if I'm a W-2 wage earner making $250,000 a year and I'm going to go invest into a business, I'm going to realize that first year of making that investment into the business, I'm going to realize a huge tax refund the following April when I file my taxes. And so you need to take all of those things into account to really break down where you truly need to land. And when people start to do that type of an exercise, they realize that if they're making $250,000 and they could get into a business and maybe make 100,000 or 125,000, I mean, that's 50% or less of what the gross was before.
Right.
That in itself in the early stage could be a replacement of income for that individual. Everyone's situation is different. But at the end of the day, you also can't forget, are you absolutely leaving that job? Or are you going to run a semi-involved business to where you have availability of time and you want to build a team to go out and maybe in your first year maintain your W-2 role while you're managing a team that is, helping to get your business off the ground to where you can have more of a stable base to say you can build this thing over the first year to 18 months to say, now I'm comfortable walking away from my W-2 and stepping into it full time. There's that avenue and angle of it too. And you can't forget about cash on cash returns, because if you're going to take more of the investment approach of where you're going to maintain a W-2, or maybe you're going to back down your time allocated to that and start to work into a business, you have to think about how much cash are you putting into it up front, which is typically 20% of the project cost, borrow the other 80%, whether that be through a line of credit, home equity loan, or the SBA. A lot of people overlook that if they invest in a $300,000 investment, they put 60,000 down at 20% of the project cost. And if even in year one, if they made 60,000, they'd come back and go, this sucks. This is the worst thing I ever did. I make 250 grand a year. I can't believe I bought a business to make 60 grand. But what they overlook is the 60,000 they injected. They made 100% cash on cash return. But yet the alternative is people would give that 60,000 to an investment advisor who at the end of the year, if they called you and said, we made you 10% in the stock market, somehow 10% hits better. But then if you pause and you go, but that's only 6,000, who's getting excited about that?
Yeah. This is perfect. This is perfect. I talk about this stuff, and I think my candidates listen to me like I'm their mother. And so this all resonates perfectly with me, and completely agree with all of it.